Hello everybody, it's Melanie coming to you from the coughing Outer Banks, but he is doing better. I know it doesn't sound like that at the moment, but he is. He's not in such distress, which is really good, but I think the steroids might give him a little bit of a cough. I don't know if that's what it is, but he didn't have this cough until he started taking the steroids, so who knows, but he's definitely not as in much distress. We're struggling so badly with the smoke right now from Quebec or wherever. Shit, they tell us it's from Quebec. We don't really know. Any of this could be AI generated, but there is shit in the air that's making it hard for this dude to breathe. Now that we have changed up his living situation and done the improvements, he should start to see a great improvement and remission of symptoms within 3 to 4 weeks. It does take a little bit of time for that inflammation to go down, but for that inflammation, I'm definitely serving him up some turmeric with some black pepper and some coconut oil, because you have to do all three together to get yourself the absorption of all of the nutrients in the turmeric. He also does a flaxseed chia seed combo, and I noticed that he has the dry cough when I don't give that, but when I do give that, he has remission of that symptom normally, except with whatever's in this air that's totally raining on his parade. It's raining on my parade a little bit. My voice is affected. My lungs feel definitely heavier and dry. So it's tough for people that are struggling in that department. So that's the lucky update. He's calmed down his coughing fit at the moment. I wanted to get on here and talk about the Jabby Jabbies. All of the Jabby Jabbies. That Crow is saying, listen up, people. Back in 2016, I changed our family to a whole foods plant-based diet. And I did it for 30 days just to see what would happen. And within 30 days, I was able to come off of bipolar medication, cold turkey. Well, yeah, it was cold turkey. I had previously had to wean down off of, what was that? I can't even think of the name of it now. But one of the worst to come off of. I feel like it starts with an S. It's eons ago. Anywho, horrible detox symptoms. You had to taper off. But I was on lithium, Wellbutrin, and Adderall at the time. And the Adderall disappeared after 7 days. I didn't need to take Adderall anymore to stay awake on the plant-based diet. And at 34 days, I accidentally forgot my medication at home and worked up in Norfolk, Virginia. And I didn't tell my husband. I was like, just power through. Whatever happens, happens. Because he had 3 kids at home that were 4, 3, and 2 at the time. And I got home and was like, all right, I'm going to ease back into my medicine and just take it easy. And so I took half of a tab of lithium. Half, not the full dose. And Lucky is like definitely here to say hello. Half of the dose and passed out for 14 hours. He could not wake me. He tried many times. I was sleeping in the girl's bed. And at that point I knew like this isn't for me anymore. And so I went cold turkey off of the meds and didn't tell him, didn't tell anybody. And 2 weeks later I finally did fess up and tell them, and they were blown away by the improvements that I'd had in just 2 weeks of mental, spiritual, emotional abilities of life and being able to do the things that I was doing, which I couldn't do 2 months before that. Like it was bad. And he's like right here. So when that happened and I continued to live and I continued to thrive after they said I would be dead, laughed in my face, the Duke psychiatrist, for $1,100 for an hour and a half and a 4-hour drive. He laughed in my face and told me I'd be dead if I was ever off my medication. And that was like, we went to plant-based September 12th. And so that was exactly 7 days later. So September 19th, that guy told me I'd be dead if I was off my meds. And it was like 2 or 3 months later. And I'm like, I'm not dead. I'm alive. I'm living better than I've ever lived in my life. I feel better than I have ever felt in my life. I don't really believe what they're telling me anymore. And I started to question everything. And I started to go down the Jabby Jab rabbit hole and decided we were going to stop doing that to our children. And we haven't done it since to our children. there's so many chemicals in those things, and there is actually no studies to prove that they are safe or effective. Absolutely zero on any single one. I was so anti-Jabby Jab. I had to argue with the nurse practitioner in the office, look her straight in the face when my daughter's trying to go to kindergarten and say, I was a nurse for 8.5 years. I know what you're talking about. I told people the same thing that you're talking about. But have you actually done the research? Have you actually dug? Because if you haven't, then you can't tell me that this is truth. You're harming other children by not blah, 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 blah. I said, how can you promise me my child won't be harmed by what you want me to put in their body? Well, you can't ever say 100% that it's going to be safe 100% of the time. I said, that's enough for me that I don't care to invest my energy or time or my children's health in this conversation at all. And that was it. And my husband had to do the same thing next year when the next daughter went to kindergarten. And then I had to do the same thing when Scarlett went into pre-K. It's hard to stand up for yourselves. It's hard when someone's telling you that something is safe and it's not going to hurt you and it's totally fine, and just do it because everybody else is doing it. It's good. And what did our parents tell us about when everybody else is doing something, but your gut instinct tells you it's a bad idea? What should we listen to? What everyone else is doing? Or should we listen to our heart? Should we listen to our conscience? Should we take a moment to breathe and sit with ourselves and decide what's best for ourselves and our family? That's what your parents would have told you to do. That's what I tell my kids. And that's what we chose to do. In 2018, my husband and I separated in July. And in November of 2018, after being a stay-at-home mom, I was shuffled back into the nursing profession by my family because I had a degree. I needed to use it to make money because I was a single mom now, and it was stupid of me not to do that and blah, blah, blah. And if you're going to live under my roof, you're going to go to work and you're going to get a real job and you're going to get yourself back on your feet and all these other things. So I applied for nursing jobs, and it required me to get a flu Jabby Jab. And I was so against them from before I was woken up to the whole Jabby Jab situation. The flu one really woke me up. Like, the flu changes so much. I took microbiology. I took the 4-credit microbiology. I loved microbiology. And so the flu variants change so fast that they can't create a vaccine. And that was when I took these courses back in the early 2000s, and they said that there are flu vaccines out there, but they're not really that good because it changes so much. And you can try, but you're not going to be able to nail it down. And when they started requiring them in nursing in 2012 and 2013, I said no, over and over and over again. I said no. Certain jobs required that I had it, and then I had to wear a sticker that I'd gotten it and propagandize this effing vaccine that I didn't believe in. And I told them no. And they, ma'am, you're gonna need to put your sticker on if you work here. I said, no, I'm not. I don't advertise for pharmaceuticals. Absolutely not. Not gonna happen. And I walked away, and she couldn't say anything. So in 2019, being shuffled back into the nursing profession, if I wanted a job in Durham or Raleigh or Cary, North Carolina, I had to get Jabby Jabbed. I even called a vegan doctor to see if he needed help, and he said I needed to be Jabby Jabbed. And after much deliberation, after many tears, after breaking, I went and I got it. I tried to offer, I had zero money at all. I didn't pay Lucky's board for 3 months that year because I didn't have a jobby job. And I went and I tried to bribe the pharmacist with a $100 bill. And she said, put that away. It's not legal. I will not do that. I said, this is wrong, and I'm just trying to feed my family, and I shouldn't have to do this. And she gave it to me. And I cried for hours afterwards because I felt like my entire freedom, my entire being had been violated for something that I shouldn't have to do in the first place. We should be caring for each other in community form, but it shouldn't be a job in the medical industry that I no longer believed in, but I was only doing so that I could make a buck to feed my family. It was like life in this world, which is not how it's supposed to be. Newsflash. If you're here, you probably know that. So I got it, and I every part of my being felt violated. I felt like shit for months. I relapsed that year 3 or 4 times over the spring. Seeing what I was seeing, doing what I was doing, watching people dying of flesh-eating bacteria. That was like the most haunting thing in the whole world. Watching young people in their 30s and 40s that had been presumably healthy dying of really terrible rare forms of cancer. It was painful, hard to watch, the connections that you made with the families and the relationships that you made with the fellow nurses. It was heartbreaking, heart-wrenching, and I numbed myself on multiple occasions. So, sorry, I had to like gather my thoughts there. So when it comes to what happened in 2020 and 2021 with the Jabby Jab craze that everybody like lost their minds about on one end of the spectrum or the other, and I know what spectrum I was on, and it was definitely the far end of never put that stuff near my body, near my family. I don't care if my family disowns me. I don't care. It's not going to touch me from a million miles away. And that's what I told my family, and that's what I told my friends, and the people that stuck around, cool. The people that forced us to not pee inside the house, but pee outside the house because they didn't want us to be inside their home. When we went to visit them, yeah, that happened. The family that would hug everybody else at the party but me. Me and my girls, we couldn't have hugs because we were unclean, vile human beings. That stuff happened, and I know that it happened to a lot of people, and I know that some people weren't as strong as I was, but I knew that I was never going to do to myself what I'd already done in the past. And here we are, 3 years later, almost 3 total years since it was released in like December of 2020. And the effects that are happening, that I'm seeing and that I'm witnessing in the people around me. I know 2 people with throat cancer. The only person I ever knew to have throat cancer when I was a kid was like this, and it wasn't even when I was a kid, it was finally when I was in college, and it was one of my dad's friends that was like 10 or 15 years older than he was. I mean, older people used to die of cancer. I know people with severe digestive issues. I know people with severe weight gain. I can see the lymphatic buildup. I can see it in here. If you don't have a jawline, like this part, this is like lymph stagnation under your armpits. There's lymphatic there. I used to have golf ball size lymph nodes in my armpits. Lymph nodes down through the crotch area. I'm sorry, it's true. Lymph nodes on the backs of the knees. If you're noticing swelling or stagnation there, you need to clean your system. How do you clean your system? You stop putting junk in it. And the one thing that blows my freaking mind in all of this is how much shit we can put in our bodies, how much terrible things we can do to our bodies, and how long and resilient our bodies are able to hang in there for. And it's really, there was an interesting study done, I don't even remember where I saw it, just recently, where the people that had had multiple doses of the Jabby Jab ended up having like the lowest amount of mortality rate. And it's like when it came to dying from sudden death, I think it was the graph, and probably shouldn't be quoting this study, but they'd been weeded out in the first 2, no jab, 1 jab, 2 jabs, 3 jabs plus. And so their mortality rate was lower because they'd already been weeded out in the other sections. But it's like their bodies had become immune to it and like strengthened beyond it. And if you don't think that there's been a sudden drop in reduction in populations worldwide, you've got another thing coming. Because I can't tell you the number of people that I know that have passed away. And if I've known that many people, and you know that many people, and your friend knows that many people, and this didn't used to happen where we knew so many people passing away all at the same time, and like granted, in less than like 1 to 2 years, this is crazy. crazy. It blows my mind how resilient our bodies still are and how much shit we can pile in there. And like, if you had a car and you put donuts in it instead of gasoline, it wouldn't run at all. If you have a computer, you put donuts in the hard drive instead of a CD, which they don't do anymore, but that dates how old I am, it wouldn't run anymore. And yet you can fill this amazing vehicle that God has gifted us with donut after donut, after cheesecake, after Cheetos, after Jersey Mike subs, after all the things you can pile in there because somebody told you it was a good idea, somebody told you it was healthy. These are all things that they're telling a lot of people that aren't true. How resilient the body is that it's not dead yet. And we have all of these diseases, and we have all of these varying diseases based on our genetic makeup of who we are as humans and where we came from. And so your diseases might be different than other people's diseases, but if you recognize your diseases are often very similar to what's in your family, and that's because you eat what your family's eaten, what they've eaten, and what they've eaten, and it just passed down the line. And so if your family is full of Pepsi, Cheetos, and all the things, and everybody dies from heart attacks by the age of 40, take a look at your diet, and I bet if you change it, you won't be that person. Chris had high blood pressure, severely high blood pressure at 30, 29 and 30. And his 140s over 80s, high 80s, sometimes 90s. That's not good. He was 30. Guess what his blood pressure is now? 110 over 60. I mean, like, it's amazing what happens when you stop filling your body full of the junk and it can run the way that it's meant to. I guess that's a message for this video, is that when we treat our bodies the way that they're meant to be treated, and we do the things to our bodies that were meant to be done in the first place, of eating fresh fruits, eating fresh vegetables, eating the plants that God put here for us to consume, then you're going to be able to function at a higher rate and higher level. And you're going to have the energy, you're going to have the patience, you're going to have the mental stability, you're going to have the physical stability, you're going to have the balance, you're going to have the control, you're going to have all of the things. But you have to put in the effort. You have to put in the work for it. And you've got to choose to change and let shit go. I know a lot of people struggling with constipation. You're holding on to resentments, you're holding on to angers, you're holding on to so-and-so did this to me crap. You're holding on to childhood wounding and trauma. Let it go. We can't take it where we're going. You can't even take it when you go to heaven. Let it sit here in the darkness and give it to Mother Earth. She'll process it. She'll transform it. Give it to God. He'll transform it. So that's my message for today. Why we don't get the Jabby Jabs. Why we feed our bodies the way that we do. I know I keep giving this message, but it needs to be heard. And I keep getting new people coming to this channel. So for the new people coming to the channel and the new people watching this channel, thank you for being here. Thank you for engaging in conversation with me. If you have questions, ask them in the comments below. Scroll through the past videos, because I've talked a lot about random stuff from way back when, 2018 on. And there's some really good tidbits of information. I hope you enjoy this channel. I hope you enjoy the content. And my horse is leaving, so I gotta go. So much peace, so much love, so much namaste. Adios, my friends.